Hi everyone. I want to make this video to talk about Cabell's directory, a great resource for learning some of the characteristics, strengths, qualities of different journals. Okay, let's start. How do we access it? Well, we first need to log into the system portal. So I've already logged in here, as we can see, and I go to the category links and find the Fogler Library. Let's click on the Fogler Library and it pops up here. We scroll down to databases. Cabell's is a database that the university subscribes to. So I click on C to get Cabell's. Here it is, Cabell's Directory of Publishing Opportunities. So I click on that and it hopefully pops up. There we go. And it's again, you can type in here a description of a journal, a topic, a content area, and it will search through thousands of journals and give you information back based on what they've organized. To start with, I'm just gonna let's look up. I want to look for a specific journal, Child Development, and that's a great journal in the area of child development. I hit return. And notice it gives me 169 results, which is a lot it may kind of seem overwhelming to begin with, but keep in mind it's looking, because the way the search is working, it's not just looking for the journal titles, it's looking for journals about children or child, about development, so there's a lot of things unrelated to it, that not the journal I'm looking for is showing up in this list. We'll talk later about how to filter the results based on some of the characteristics that we'll see when we dig into this a little more. So we'll come back to that later after we've learned kind of some of those things that we may want to filter on. In this case, we just need to scroll down a bit. It's not too far down. Here's Child Development. I click on this. This is the journal I want, and it pops up the information I'm looking for. So here it is. It gives me a nice, pretty picture. This is what the journal looks like if you get the hard copy of it. And it gives you quick information. It's published bi-monthly. The editor right now is in Puerto Rico, and editors change every few years. And it's a hybrid outlet that is paper and online. And then these other things we'll talk about in just a minute. Some quick summaries of the impact that the journal has. There's 3 tabs kind of that give you the meat and potatoes of describing the journal. About, then metrics, contact. And we're really going to focus on the about and metrics for this course. About is useful. It gives you just it describes the journal and review process in ways that are useful for if you're a researcher that wants to submit a paper here, but also for us as informed consumers. Some of the things we've talked about show up here a little bit. So it's good to pay attention to this. For example, it tells us right here, it's got a 10% acceptance rate. So that tells me as a researcher, if I want to send papers there, 90% of the stuff they get, they reject. So I don't want to waste my time sending them crap. I only want to send them my best work, or else I'm wasting their time, I'm wasting my time. So a high acceptance rate means that they tend to publish higher quality papers and research. They're rejecting a lot of stuff. They can be selective in what they're accepting. They don't have to feel pressure to take poor quality things. Invited articles, it tells me 0 to 5% are invited. This is kind of a different sort of thing in terms of the quality of the journal. It really depends on who are they inviting. Some journals publish a lot of invited or publish a significant number of invited papers from huge names in the field, in which case that's really good that they'll put their energy into writing for the journal. So that can be great. But if a journal is accepting a lot of invited papers where it's their friends and buddies, and they're just giving them opportunities to publish, well, that's not so good. So it's kind of hard to evaluate the percentage of articles that are invited, because it really depends on who are they inviting. As a researcher, if I submit an article to a journal where a lot of the publications have been invited, it tells me, if I'm not invited, that may not be the best place to go. If a journal, again, if some journals publish more based on invitation, then you just need to be invited. You may not want to kind of go there. But again, that really kind of depends on who it is. Acceptance rate, though, that's very helpful as we've seen. Then over here, it gives us some information about the review process. Double blind. Double blind just means, again, that neither the researcher nor the reviewer knows who the other is. So it's seen as kind of a clean way of doing review, that you don't know who's reviewing your stuff. They don't know who you are. So we like blind review. Double blind is great. And then again, if I'm submitting articles, it gives me a sense of how much time they typically take to review and how much time, if it's accepted, it takes to be published. Then let's look at the metrics. So there's 3 key metrics that Cabell's provides for us. And I like 2 of them. I don't like the third. The first one, which I do like, is the Cabell's classification index. And you can think of this number as just another variation of an impact factor. The Cabell's classification index looks at how many citations there are for articles in this journal over a 3-year period. And then it ranks them from up to 99%, kind of their percentile for how many citations each of their articles are getting. Makes sense. Articles that have lots and lots of citations. If I publish a paper in child development and everybody's reading it and lots of researchers are citing it, it tells you that, wow, that's a journal that people are reading, people are looking at the work. It must be good because everybody's citing those studies. So that's great. The higher the classification index, the more people are citing articles published in that journal. So 99% tells you, wow, everybody's citing this journal. And it is. It's arguably kind of top in the field depending on who you talk to. Notice there's 2 numbers, because it gives us it can give you multiple classification indices for different disciplines, because they're not necessarily all the same. In this case, 2 of the disciplines are educational psychology and administration, and psychology and psychiatry. Notice for both of these, it's at the 99th percentile. So it's like, that's great. Its classification index is 99% for both disciplines. So it's top for either of those. Over here, it's got this nice little graphic. Notice because there's 2 disciplines, it's divided the circle into 2 halves, and it kind of graphs out, it's how the radius that's shaded in tells you what the score is. So the more that's shaded in, the bigger that 99% is. I mean, this is really completely redundant with the 99%, but whatever. Someone thought that's clever. Then there is the difficulty of acceptance index, and I do not like this one for 2 key reasons. One is it's called the difficulty of acceptance score, but it's not the difficulty of acceptance. The label, I think, is misleading. You say this score tells you the difficulty of acceptance. I think, okay, that tells me how hard it is for my research to get published in there. Right? That would make sense. It's difficult to be accepted, so it's going to be hard to get in. I need to send them really good quality stuff. No. The difficulty of acceptance score is based on Cabell's people looking at the home institutions for the authors who publish in this journal. And then they rate the universities that you're coming from. And they've got what they've identified as like high impact universities. And the difficulty of acceptance score for a journal is based on how many papers they publish from those high impact top institutions. That's not the difficulty of acceptance. That's, do you just publish from certain elite universities? That might be good. They may give you a lot of stuff that's good. And they have a rationale because, oh, those universities support and have resources, so they always do good stuff. But trust me, that's not always true. So one, the label is, I think it's the wrong label. It's not a difficulty of acceptance. It's, do you publish, how much of their stuff is published from people at top universities? I have a more fundamental problem with this whole idea that, notice, it's not looking at the quality of the article. It's not looking at the quality of the research. It's looking at the quality of the institution that it comes from. That just seems wrong to me. Your work is being evaluated not based on the quality of the study. It's based on where are you from? That just, whoa, the whole idea just bothers me. So I don't like it. I think it opens up bias and it penalizes quality research, hardworking people that just aren't at these top universities, working at these top institutions, and so that's the difficulty of acceptance score. Again, I don't like it. Don't think of it as a difficulty of acceptance. Don't think of it as telling you how hard it is, what their rejection rate is. That's not a rejection rate. That is how many articles they publish from people from the right universities. Wow, you can see I don't like that. And we'll just leave it at that. I'll get off my soapbox now. Then there is the altmetric score. And in this case, it's the median altmetric score for articles published in that journal. So again, this is looking at the what the altmetric score is for. It's based on individual articles, and where the citation index is also based on individual articles. It's looking at, for each article, how many citations do the articles have, for the whole journal, and then it gives you that 99%. The altmetric score looks not just at the citations that an article has. It looks at the broader social media impact that an article has. It looks at, are people talking about this on Twitter? Are people talking about this on Reddit? Are people talking about this on Facebook? Is it showing up in all sorts of other social media? Well, you have it here. Is it showing up in blogs? Is it showing up on Google+? Is it in the news? And you can see here the median altmetric score for journal articles in child development. Their median score was 59. And child development overall has, 322,519 total mentions in social media. The 1466 on Facebook, 810 on blogs, 18,000 plus on Twitter, 627 in Wikipedia, 48 on Reddit. So this gives you a big sense of how, again, kind of a broader social media impact that an article may be having, because it starts to factor in these other outlets. Okay, so the 59 just tells you the median article has 59 of these sorts of mentions. Okay, we can talk about, I'll talk about this in a separate video, the altmetric score. Okay, so that is child development. Oh, and again, we're really interested in about, and the metrics gives us the information to start to evaluate journals. Contact is just, if you want to submit stuff, kind of going to the journal and the editor. Okay, let's take one quick look at another journal just for contrast. So there's child development. Here is, what about child and youth services? So here we see that journal. We look at here, kind of for their about information, 50% acceptance rate. So they accept a lot more papers in child development. If I've got a study I'm not that thrilled about, that's kind of, this is a place you may send it. They accept half of their work, so they're less selective. So something to keep in mind when you're reading it. You want to also keep that in mind, that yeah, they publish stuff that's probably less rigorous as a result. Let's look at some of their metrics. Wow, their metrics are a lot different. Notice they're also for educational psychology and administration and psychology and psychiatry. But now instead of 99%, they're 22 and 19%. So again, much lower impact in the sense that other researchers are citing papers from this journal. You can publish here, but on average, the articles being published here just aren't being cited by other researchers that much for whatever reason. So again, it's having less of an impact. Here we can see, notice only the very middle, that 20% circle, right around that 20% circle for each of these is shaded in, just kind of giving us a visual of that 22% and 19%. Then we have the difficulty of acceptance, 35%, 33%. That just tells you they're publishing more of their stuff is being published. More of their papers are from researchers that are not at those top elite universities. And you know how I feel about that. Again, doesn't mean it's bad studies. It just means they came from the wrong school. Their median altmetric score is 16. That just tells you, again, it's not being seen in social media and other outlets as much as we were seeing for the child development. 13 Facebook mentions. It shows up 140 times on Twitter, 4 times in Wikipedia, 3 news that they're aware of. There may be more that they're unaware of course. Okay, so that is. Before we go, one more thing. You can also apply filters to your search. I wanted to talk about that. If you don't want to look at all 169, you can filter based on the discipline. You have different disciplines, and you might look at this and think, wow, those are kind of an odd selection of disciplines. But part of it reflects what Cabell's monitors, and part of it reflects what the university subscribes to. So you can pick a field like educational curriculum and methods, and then you can get into subfields to focus narrowly in more sub-disciplines. You can filter based on the classification index, that you maybe only see journals with classification indices above a certain level or below if you for some reason wanted to do that. Same with altmetrics. You can filter based on altmetric scores. You can filter based on the type of review it goes through, or whether it's open access, paper, traditional, whatever. And other things. We won't go through all that. You can play around a little bit to see it. But again, great resource if you're trying to get a snapshot of the quality of what a journal looks like. Okay? Hope this is helpful. Take care. Bye-bye.